Welcome back to another episode of the Alchemical Life podcast. I am your host, Abigail Crow, and I am a strength coach for a lot of endurance runners. I am an endurance runner myself. I want runners to get stronger, faster, forever. And today, we're not really going to be talking too much about the body. We're going to be talking about our mindset and how our mindset can act as a performance-enhancing drug. What do I mean by this? No, it's not an actual performance-enhancing drug, but I do believe that our mindsets are really, really potent. I think they're potent, either positive or negative stimulus to our overall performance, and this is backed by research. Now, this is a good follow-up to last week's episode with Gary Droz talking about overall race psychology and performance. We're gonna keep on that trend, just because in my own life, my own experience with clients, my own experience with my own self and the various sports that I've done and competitions I've done, mindset has been one of the most fundamental components of my success. It is one thing to show up for a session, and it's another thing to really show up for a session, if you know what I mean. And same with races. It is the ability to have a string of those sessions where you can show up mentally and physically, and that is what creates a super successful training block ultimately. We're going to go into that, and then we're going to talk about my scary goals and how I've been able to approach my scary goals. I'm going to announce the times that I have for my scary goals, like what my scary goals are. And I think it's just a good little tie-in together to what we're talking about today with psychology, the psychological component to performance, and it's huge. So without further ado, let me stop yapping and let me get right into it. Of course, there is the physical component to improve performance, and if you do need a program that's going to help you get to the starting line strong, I do have a quiz link that you can take based on your goals. What quiz would be the best, or what quiz? Based on your goals, what program would be the best for you? The quiz will help you determine this, so check it out. And if not, just take a quiz. Quizzes are fun. Don't even buy the program. Just take the quiz. Anyways, I truly believe that perspective is in some capacity a performance enhancing drug. You're going to see me look down often because I really do need to stay to my notes, because I have a lot of things written down, a lot of thoughts on this, and there's also research associated with this. So I'm going to be referring to my notes quite frequently so that I can stay on task today. I know that our perception truly creates our reality. How we perceive things to be is going to dictate what we perceive, what we see, what becomes. And so when you see something as fixed, negative, bad, useless, depressing, hopeless, that is what it becomes to you. That is the value that you have assigned to that thing. If that's how you approach your training and your life in general, that is the value that you've placed on that thing. And I speak with a lot of passion behind this because I speak from personal experience. I have struggled a lot in my life with negative self-talk, with negative visualization, with a very negative attitude, outlook, with negative ruminating thoughts that have gone on for days and weeks at a time. And so this is something that I feel very passionate about because I truly know what it feels like to be on both sides. I know what it feels like to have such an incredible training block, such an incredible mindset going into something, and really seeing the positive benefits that it's drawn from it. And I've also been on the opposite side of things, going into something negative, hopeless, pissed, angry, whatever, frustrated, and seeing how bad it ends up being. So the saying, like, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right, it in many ways rings quite true. And I think that even if you do end up accomplishing what you want, you won't be able to really fully appreciate what you've accomplished because of that negative mindset. And so the first thing I want to talk about is a positive growth mindset. We need to have a positive growth mindset. And that's really important, because if it's fixed, if we truly believe that things are not changeable, then there's no confidence or hope in the association that anything will ever come about that is good. That is, there's no point in putting forth effort into change if change is not possible. So when we have a growth mindset, when we believe that we can change, we can get better, we can be better, we can adopt new and improved behaviors, we can actually change our behaviors and ways of learning and ways of thinking, then we produce better results, because it's both a real and hopeful outlook on performance in life. If I believe, even though I understand right now, maybe I'm not at the fitness level that I want to be at, I'm not at the goal time that I want to have, I'm not the athlete that I want to be yet, I'm not even an athlete yet, I'm not athletic yet. If I believe that I can put in effort, put forth the work, get help where I need to, then that I will produce the results that I want eventually. there is hope and confidence in that. If I believe that there's no point because I'm just not athletic, then obviously there's no point in trying. I had this mindset for a lot of my life. I always said, I'm just not a creative person. I've said, I'm just not a smart person. I've said, I'm just not a positive person. Well, if that's how you think and that's who you believe yourself to be, you will act in accordance with that. I've been really changing my mindset to I am an athletic individual. I am a smart individual. I am a creative individual. My creativity looks differently. It takes me a while to learn and accumulate knowledge, but overall I can grasp concepts. And so in being able to be both positive and also real, I think that we have that ability to grow and become better and scale up. So, what growth behaviors show up positively in our physical endeavors? One of those things is resilience and confidence. If we can be resilient and confident, then that means that we know that failures are just a part of the process and they are only things that we can utilize as tools to aid us in our getting better and our becoming better. And a confidence and association with that is knowing that in the failure, in the thing that we're learning, we will become better for it and we will adapt and overcome whatever setback may have come upon us. So both the resilience and the confidence gives us motivation, which is the next growth trait, because now we believe we can get better. And when we can get better, I'm motivated to try. If there's no point in me, if there's no point in me doing what I'm doing, right? I truly am just not an athletic person. Then there's no point. It's very easy to get to a place of, why try? I'm done. You have one bad day, it's very easy to go and sink very low. But if you have a growth mindset, then you have the motivation that today might not have been my day. This week might not have been my week, but I'm motivated to continue showing up. And in the motivation to continue showing up, there's a discipline associated with it that also trails off, because I'm not always going to feel ready to do it today, but I know that I'll continue to get better if I show up. And so I'm both motivated and disciplined in the process. So this is all backed by research. Athletes with a growth mindset, this is a quote, end quote, athletes with a growth mindset exhibited a reduced physiological and psychological stress response to competition, and they reported greater satisfaction on their basic psychological needs for autonomy, competence, and relatedness. This is a huge study. I believe this is like 400 plus participants in this study. And so when the athletes exhibited this mindset of like, I can grow and I can learn, I'm not fixed in who I am as an athlete, they were actually less stressed going into their competition, and they had better satisfaction in the competition because they felt like they had some autonomy and competence in their sport. How freeing is that? We're going to get into negative, we're going to get into self-talk, we're going to get into visualization. If these things are not necessarily traits that you're quite ready to adopt because you just haven't bought into the idea of positive outlook, then simply saying there is a potential for growth is like the first biggest step in overall improved performance through the power of mindset. And being able to just believe that my mind and my behaviors can change if I try, like that is a potent stimulus for future improved performance and overall improved outlook on life and to greater life satisfaction in general. The next thing that we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about self-talk. Self-talk is probably my biggest area of weakness. And so it's the thing that I will likely spend the most amount of time talking about, because I think it's something that most people struggle with. As a coach, it's the thing that I see people really get caught up in and can be completely crippled and debilitated by. And I personally have been that person as well. So the negative spiraling does not come from the event that occurs. An event is neutral. An event is an event. It's our emotions that arise from our thoughts that we speak to ourselves, that we tie to the event, that create the negative spiraling. This is linked oftentimes with therapies like cognitive behavioral therapy to help distill and separate what is real and what is a lie, what is historical, what is destructive. We take the event and then we take the thoughts associated with and the emotions associated with, and then we can kind of determine what is logical versus what is not logical in our mind and in our thought processes. Some examples of negative self-talk would be things like catastrophizing. Oh my God, I missed this shot. It is the end of the world. Then there's all or nothing. A lot of people associate this with food related things. I had one piece of cake and that was bad. And so I might as well eat half the cake because screw this. I'm going to go off diet for the rest of my week because there's no point because I had one thing off and I've ruined it. Then there's overgeneralization, which is essentially saying something like, yeah, I'm just not a good athlete. I'm just not a creative person, I guess. It's just I'm just these types of things I seem to always fail at. This is a huge generality that is completely not associated with anything rooted in reality. And the last thing is personalization. What did I do wrong? I could have prevented this if I had just XYZ. I am solely responsible for every single thing that happens, every single life event that gets thrown at me. And if there's any failure associated with it, it is completely and utterly always my fault. This is the problem with this like big association with like everything is your responsibility. Yes, it's important. Accept responsibility for things, take ownership over things. However, life happens, things happen. And when we always take that personal responsibility and we put it in a destructive area and we instead interpret it as something bad as opposed to, hey, yeah, this happened. I could have done this better. And also, I did these things really well, and next time I'll do this, and it was a great learning opportunity, and yada, yada, yada. If we only take what is destructive from it and we don't formulate anything constructive from it, then all it is going to do is continue to put you down. And that's why negative self-talk is so powerful, because what happens is we continue to speak out loud or in our minds a negative truth or lie, whatever you're going to associate it with, but it becomes a pattern and a loop in your brain that continues to run. And when anything bad happens, when anything not even bad happens, when any event occurs that in your mind has gone not according to plan or wrong, these negative self-talk loops will begin and they will continue. And that is when they can spiral out of control. And then you can completely lose it on a run, in a workout, in a game, in life, in an argument, in a hardship, in work, etc. They found in a study that positive instructional self-talk, so not just positive, you've got this, you're amazing, whatever, but also instructional, okay? You open up the stride a little bit, relax the shoulders, right? Instructional self-talk is proven to help with performance. There was a systematic review and a mini meta-analysis on runners that found that self-talk interventions showed a trend of improvement in performance, suggesting it is a promising psychological strategy for endurance athletes. Now, this is not just endurance athletes. Obviously, this is across all athletes. This particular study focused on endurance athletes, and it's why I liked it so much, because that is the audience that I'm primarily talking to, and that is the sport that I primarily compete in. I had to pause the episode because we had some situation going on, but the last thing that I want to talk about is visualization. When we can visualize something in our mind, our brains begin to interpret that thing as if it is real, or as if it is happening, or if it has already happened. And the PETLEP, I believe it's called PETLEP is how they pronounce it, model gives 7 variations of how to visualize, how to use visualization to our aid whenever we are transferring it positively to performance in sport. I used visualization a lot in jiu-jitsu because prepping for tournaments can be really scary. You can do a lot of the physical prep, but then there's also the element of you are going against an opponent that you do not know. You genuinely don't know what their skills are. I mean, you can study your opponents, but some people are newer. You don't know them. You're newer to jiu-jitsu. And so you don't necessarily know what they're going to do, their strengths, their weaknesses, since their last tournament, what they might have been working on since that they're better at now. You just never know. There's a lot of unknown variables, and all you can best do is prepare proper transitions and attacks off of transitions in a fighting scenario. And so different modes of visualization are: one, physical, actually feeling what physically it's going to feel like when you are doing the thing that you're going to do. There is environmental. So what is the environment around you? What does it feel like? What does it look like? What does it smell like? We use our senses to interpret those things. The task at hand, we can visualize actually doing the task, how it's going to move, how we are going to carry out the task that we need to. The next is timing, which is how do we take the task and coordinate properly into proper timing. This is often used in skill-based sports, but you can also use it in endurance sports in terms of pacing strategies and things of that nature. There's the learning. This is what I utilized a lot in jiu-jitsu, which is learning new movements, being able to solidify movements that I've been practicing in my training and continuing to use that movement in multiple scenarios in my mind, visualizing it so that I can learn how it is utilized in different fighting scenarios. And so there's also a learning to transfer to things like running, because there's a learning in overall movement quality and potentially running form that might have shifted. There's a learning in how to properly transfer those the skills and the adaptations we had from the energy systems used to race in the race that we have coming up. There's emotion. How are we going to feel? How can we feel? How do we want to feel? How do we want to feel when we reach our goal? How do we want to feel when we cross the finish line? And then there's also perspective. In my opinion, perspective is visualizing all that's accumulated in this training and create a positive perspective for future race day, having a positive outlook on the overall block as a whole, visualizing that and how our perspective is going to line up on race day when we really need it the most. How is it going to look? And how's it going to come together? There is one other thing that I do want to discuss, and that's goal setting, because goal setting is, while it doesn't seem like a perspective thing, it doesn't seem like, oh, this is just a realistic, rational, we just set the goals, we meet the goals, we don't meet the goals, right? No, because goal setting, there are outcome-based goals, but oftentimes the outcome-based goals are like the least important in terms of helping us and helping our mindset and allowing us to go through a training block really successfully and reach awesome goals, is just setting an outcome goal. Setting a process-based goal is really important, because through the process, we want to be able to check boxes and gain confidence in ourselves as athletes and or people pursuing something athletically. Having process-based goals is crucial. Also, setting outcome-based goals is obviously something you're going to want to do. You want to have a time goal for a race or things of that nature. You want to set those goals with the perspective of who is the athlete right now. Where are you right now? And it doesn't mean, okay, I'm going to set a goal based on a time that I could hit right now. No. It's, am I setting up this standard for myself or this outcome-based goal for myself based on a version of myself that I once was? Or am I setting a goal for the athlete that I am now and the athlete that I'm becoming? Many of my clients, and also I've done this with myself in the past, have taken a version of themselves that they were, and they now have a lot of pressure to perform in the same way that they once were, which in reality, there shouldn't be a pressure to perform in a way you once were, even if you were really, really skilled athletically at the time then, because what it does is it still confines you and constrains you to a past version of yourself. And what we want to do is create a new version of yourself and grow and expand in ways we maybe never thought possible beyond that. And that future version of yourself could look far better than the past version of yourself ever once was. And so setting goals, outcome-based goals and process-based goals on the version of the person that you would like to become based on a person that you are now, not in this hope of becoming somebody you once were, is really important. All that being said, setting goals can be scary, and the goals that I have are a little bit scary. I set goals for the end of 2026, and some of them, realistically, I don't think I'll be able to accomplish until 2026. I would like to accomplish some of these goals before the end of 2026 so I can make new ones. But there's one particular goal that I set for the end of 2026 that I think that I might be able to accomplish before 2025 ends, and that's hitting a sub 19 5K. That's very scary for me because 5Ks are quite painful, and since mile training, my fitness has just not necessarily been in exactly the 5K time slot that I'd like to be in, but I have a lot of hope that I will be able to get there with the type of training that I'm doing, and also giving myself the proper rest and recovery that I need and tapering into the race well. So by around November, I would like to be hitting a sub 19 5K. My other scary goal is I've never run a half marathon before, and I would like for my first half marathon to be sub 130. Sub 19 is a below a 607 pace average, and a sub 130 half marathon is to be below it in a way that I would feel confident and comfortable is hitting about a 645 pace average for those 13.1 miles. I have pretty good leg speed, and it's something that a 645 mile is not a challenge at all, but stringing that together and being able to maintain that level of speed endurance is something that is not in the cards for me yet, but I think could be in the cards for me for the Jacksonville December 13th. And so it is a race that I'm both really looking forward to and also quite nervous for. I have a lot of people that are going to be coming with me that weekend who are also going to be racing, whether for fun or for real competition. And so those are the goals that I've set forth. And in the process of becoming that athlete, that can accomplish those goals. I do have little markers that I can hit along the way and a full training block along with a scheduled deload week, a down week, so that I am not burning myself into the ground and running myself into the ground. This past week was my first above 40-mile week that I've ever hit in my life. And it was tough. I'm definitely sore and I will be probably feeling it this week. It might infiltrate a little bit of my training, but I don't fear not. I'm not worried because this week I will only be getting 36 miles, and so I I think that I'm undulating my mileage reasonably well, even though all of my training is going to be fairly high mileage and tough. Because I also can look forward to that down week that's coming in the next couple of weeks. That being said, I wanted to put those goals out there because I think setting scary goals and saying scary goals is important because with the growth mindset, there should be an understanding that growth is possible and I can accomplish hard things and I can do hard things. And that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I hope it was helpful. The psychology behind running and pursuing things athletically in sport is very fascinating to me. It's something that is really important to me, and I think it's been pivotal in my training, and I hope that it's pivotal in yours as you utilize these techniques moving forward. But let me know if you have any questions, comments, what if any of these techniques you have already used and have been helpful for you, and what you might be starting to use now after hearing this. Peace out, you guys. I'll see you next week. And I have a guest on, Alec Blennis. He is an incredible hybrid athlete, absolute freak, sub 250 marathoner, will be probably hitting a sub 240 marathon here in the next a little bit over a month. And while he does that, he also just looks like a freak of nature bodybuilder, Olympic lifts, absolute unit. So super excited to have him on. Really, really full of knowledge and just an incredible human being all around. All right, you guys. Until next time, bye.